Well, I'm rejoined now by food critic and Telegraph writer William Sitwell. William, you go to more restaurants than most people, you review them. Do you think we'll be satisfied if instead of having the restaurant experience, we just sit at home, put a headset on, eat a carrot and think we're munching foie gras in Wilton's?
Well, obviously not. And as you say, I eat in a lot of restaurants and it's my job to do so. And, you know, I see a lot of digital innovation coming. And if there's one thing that I would like to happen in the future, I'd like to see restaurants have telephones. You know, I'd like to be able to call up a restaurant to make a booking. I don't want to have to go online the whole time. I want to be able to ring up a restaurant and say that I'm running late rather than having to log on and modify my restaurant reservation and then get a load of sort of text messages back. Also asking me if I want to, you know, give them the benefit of what I've thought about the restaurant. I was, you know, obviously if I was going to say that, I'd say, oh, don't worry, wait until you see it in print. You know, eating out in restaurants is essentially the food aside and the atmosphere and everything else. It's about communing with other people. The one thing you don't want to do when you turn up in a restaurant is be forced to get out your telephone and zap a QR code so you can order your wine or your menu from your phone. It's about putting electronic devices away. It's about talking to the person, either a business meeting, looking someone in the eye, a loved one. It's about leaving the cares of the world aside. And, you know, I was speaking to an amazing restaurateur in Auckland, New Zealand the other day, a great man called Al Brown. And he said to me, the key thing to understand about restaurant goers is when they walk into a restaurant, they're full of anxiety. Am I going to like the food? Am I going to like the wine? Is my table going to be decent? And it's about calming that anxiety, giving people water immediately. At his restaurant Depot in Auckland, he brings people water immediately, then he brings them some hummus and a dip. The one thing they might be worried about is, am I paying for this? You need to calm people. And the idea that you want to put on headphones, I mean, Heston did it with his Sounds of the Sea dish at the Fat Duck, where you had food and an egg in a huge, great conch, and you listen to the noise of crashing water, and it sort of messes with your mind and influences your taste. You know, dinner for two at the Fat Duck these days, and a friend of mine went the other day, can cost about £1,200. So there's room for theatrics and all that sort of thing. But what we want, essentially, at the end of the day, is that cheeky little place where we're known when we walk in, where there's a little table in the corner, where it's affordable, where it's fun, accessible, and where we can have conversations.
But it's about service, isn't it? That it's about being welcomed, and this goes from the moment you ring up and book the table, and they say, we're so looking forward to seeing you again, or welcome back, and then when you arrive, everything running smoothly, and that requires people rather than mechanics. But also this idea that the food you eat should have its taste adjusted through AI, through mind signals. That's almost sinister, isn't it?
Listen, it'll happen, and if people want to have that theatrical experience, then they can enjoy that. If people want to put on goggles...
I think Deliveroo is saying they'll do it for you at home.
Listen, Deliveroo will do anything they can in order to get PR, and here we are talking about the Deliveroo survey today. You look at it, you know, just stop oil, throw orange powder on the picture. Lords, they get publicity, you know, and this is all part of the PR game. But there are some interesting things that come out of this. I think, you know, the innovation in food is going to be things like, you know, salad leaves that are grown using just water in these vertical towers. The ability to grow salads and in your own home in sort of mini fridges and that sort of stuff. What you can do with composting. I think one of the greatest innovations of food will be insect-based foods, because if we can use insects who can live off waste, food waste, and then we can turn those insects into biscuits and use those insects as protein rather than beef, and we can put it in burgers where people who are eating burgers don't care where their food comes from, then those are the sort of innovations that we want to see. I actually quite like...
I'd rather have AI food that made me think a carrot was roast beef than to eat a few insects and think it was roast beef.
But there's nothing wrong with eating insects. I mean, we eat lobster, we eat crustacea from the sea, but these are forms of insects. I've eaten a gold speckled grasshopper with some avocado on toast, and it was very delicious.
It's absolutely disgusting. I should never wish to eat a grasshopper again.
But Jacob, you don't eat garlic. I mean, the only thing you can have is peas and gravy and shepherd's pie.
I don't like peas either.
You don't even like mustard.
No, I don't. No,
exactly.
I like proper English food. But leaving my dietary habits to one side, I think this is a pretty dystopian vision, actually, of people eating a lot of vegetables and flies. Can't we just have proper food, and you're very keen on people having food that's sourced locally. And of course, you live in Somerset, and so there's the advantage of having food that is grown near you. It's much harder when you're in a town.
It's harder in the city, but if you shop using independent butchers, and you can have conversations with those butchers and ask them where the food comes from, then you're one step closer. Yeah, sure, not everyone has the privilege of living in the countryside and being able to shop in a farmer's market. But the mantra, which has become a cliche because it's so often repeated, will always be the case. If you can eat locally and seasonally, then you're going to get as close as you can to a sustainable, regular, varied diet.
All right, it's very good, but isn't this very expensive? And that actually,
not at all.
We need to ensure that people can, particularly in time of rising inflation, have affordable food, and affordable food is mass-produced.
Right now, if meat costs are soaring because of the costs of fuel for farm machinery, etc., etc., it doesn't cost very much to eat vegetables. You know, this is the greatest time in history for vegetarianism because, you know, carrots, peas, potatoes, all these things do not cost very much money. Lord Woolton, the great Minister of Food during the Second World War...
You wrote a book on.
I did. That's not just the reason why I mentioned it.
Very good book,
Thank you very much. But his Woolton pie made a virtue of the ration, made a virtue of the fact that you can do all sorts of wonderful things with vegetables. We eat too much protein. I'm in favour of meat-free Mondays. I'm in favour of occasionally delving into the vegan world to see how you can vary your diet. If you stop meat for a bit, it encourages you to eat fish. If you stop drinking red wine, it makes you think more about white wine. You know, if you occasionally stop, it actually opens the door to a whole plethora of new foods. And the food world is so wonderful that you can travel around the world in your own home using supermarkets, which today supply an array of food that was never possible in the past. And it enables you to travel around the world culturally. And the more varied diet, the better. So I would never preach at anyone, just keep enjoying it.
I'm not sure I'm going to go for too varied a diet. I like to get my roast beef regularly. But thank you very much, William.